order. Ms. Martin, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Unsold? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. All the commissioners, you've had a chance to review the summary minutes of the October 3rd meeting. Are there any corrections to those minutes? No corrections? I'd ask for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. In a second. Thank you.
Commissioner Rich?
Abstain.
Commissioner Vitale? Commissioner Balance? Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Runner, I request that you order that the record include all statutory and regulatory provisions, the commission's entire file for each application, and the qualifications of each staff witness. I'll also request that you administer those to those witnesses.
So ordered. Do you swear to tell the truth before this commission? Thank you all. The September financial report was in the packet. Commissioners, you have any questions? No questions. We'll move on. The preliminary subdivision and site development plans. Any questions on those? None. We have one item under the letters of credit and performance bonds. Any questions? None. I'll ask for a motion.
Moved.
Thank you. In a second, please. Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance? Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. The first item tonight for public hearing is under unfinished business. This application was recessed and it was voted to reconvene tonight, so that is docket number 2019-42Z County. Mr. Patel and L.S. Jr. and Sheila Cherry have filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately .7027 acres located at the corner of Scottsville Road, Mount Lebanon Road, and Alvaton Road from agriculture to general business with a general development plan. And we'll have the staff report from Ms. Hurd.
Thank you, Chair Runner. I guess just to start out, you should have a memo that was included with your packet of materials. The staff report has not changed since the previous meeting, but we did include a memo kind of outlining the changes that had been submitted since the previous hearing. Just to refresh everyone's memory, or if you weren't here at the previous hearing, the proposal is for a convenience store and fueling facility. I'll move it to the development plan here, the preliminary development plan, and we did receive, since the last meeting, proposed building elevations. Those are also in your packet. And so I don't know that I'll really go through anything additional. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you want to go through portions of the staff report, I'll be happy to do that as well. But if not, I know the applicants are here and may be able to explain some of the changes that they're proposing or the building elevations that they submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Hurt. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Hurt?
Since I wasn't here.
No, ma'am. It will only be those commissioners. If you have your copy of the minutes of last meeting, you'll see that list of commissioners that were in attendance, and those will be the ones that will be involved in tonight's, this one hearing. Yes, yes. This will be a continuation from that hearing.
Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we make a couple changes to some binding elements that night?
There were, and if you look in the minutes, I think there were verbal commitments that were agreed upon, but I don't know that there were ever any formal changes to reflect those during the hearing.
I think that meeting decided to hold off, I think, before
I think so,
we did.
okay.
Yeah. Any other questions before we hear from the applicant? Nothing else? Then we'll hear from the applicant, please.
Good evening.
Your name and address, please.
Okay.
Your name?
Bipin Patel.
And you swear to tell the truth before this commission?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. You have questions?
Mr. Patel,
The binding elements depict an elevation of 70% brick. The elevations you've submitted appear to be 100% brick. Are you committing to 100% brick?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm assuming we fixed the issue of the door facing Scottsville. Yeah, I know there was an issue with the door facing Scottsville Road. Is that fixed?
Let's get your name and address too, please.
Lee Ross Dinwiddie, P.O. Box 743, Franklin.
And you swear to tell the
Yes,
truth?
ma'am.
Go ahead, you can answer the question, and sir.
This is still facing the Alvaton side,
Okay.
and on the next image, we have a glass entrance type, which is I think what we were asked, like a faux front facing Scottsville Road. So the windows there have an awning over them. Those are not functional from the inside, but so facing Scottsville Road, he'll have a lit facade that appears to be a face.
And Rachel, does that address?
In all honesty, that would be a judgment call on your all's part if you feel that that appears to have a front-facing facade, if that window would satisfy that
Didn't we?
recommendation.
If I remember correctly, didn't we ask for a door, even though it wasn't needed? It had to be a a door that's going to be used. But I think we just talked about last time needing some kind of door on that side of the building.
You want a door that someone would pull on but not be able to open?
Well, doesn't the Scottsville Road call for a front-facing building to the corridor call for a building to face Scottsville Road with an entrance?
It's a recommendation, and that recommendation is on page 3 of your staff report at the bottom, number 1, and it states, a recommendation that all development visible from Scottsville Road be designed in such a way to appear to face Scottsville Road, regardless of the location of the driveway access and parking. So that is how the recommendation reads, and so it's up to you all to determine
So-
whether or not the proposal meets that recommendation.
So the screen we're looking at does not face Scottsville,
The window to the right of the image does face Scottsville Road.
Okay, so
And
it's
then-
The smaller window.
Yes, ma'am.
The
Smaller
smaller window
window,
faces
okay.
Scottsville.
And our argument would be, as you're approaching this from Bowling Green, you're looking at it head-on because of the curve of the road. And the back of the building is heavily wooded, so we're not proposing that you would ever see the rear of the building, and we would not want to turn our back on Scottsville Road by any means. But the building faces the intersection and the breadth of the road.
Go back to the elevations and show us what is that now? Is that facing what?
This elevation is northeast of Plan here. Plan
Okay,
northeast.
but I'm asking, show me the elevation facing Scottsville Road,
Oh, sorry.
if you don't
Okay,
mind.
This one.
That's what we'll see driving down Scottsville Road.
Yes.
Yes.
small
The
window.
small window there with the little shortest awning over it.
Right.
This is quite elevated across a gully and in a wooded area as well. So you wouldn't really even see these faces.
And what is the front entrance on the next, what does that face?
Faces Alvaton Road.
Alvaton
The
Road?
Alvaton, the old historic Alvaton gas station.
So it shows on the plat, this 45-degree angle where we have the Alvaton Market sign to be pointing almost to the intersection or the corner of Mount Lebanon and Alvaton Road. So it doesn't actually, it looks like it faces kind of at a 45-degree angle. Am I misinterpreting that?
The door does, yes.
I see.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And is the only signage going to be on the building itself? You're not going to have any kind of sign out there?
We would have a standalone sign that we would propose would meet those.
Only the sign we have is on the road is a BP sign, 30 feet.
So it would be well, it's not 30 feet, it's
Do we have that?
17 feet.
17 feet?
Yeah, so the sign meets the monument style requirements. We're willing to adhere to that since we know that we're going against the recommendation of the front door facing Scottsville Road.
So where are you talking about placing the sign?
He would want to be on the Mount Lebanon and Scottsville Road intersection, so plan northeast or upper left-hand corner, if you're looking at the plan.
Could I turn your attention back to the elevation? So this is clearly an all masonry exterior, and you've agreed to that. Is it also your intent to submit this as an accurate depiction of the stonework that you plan to do on this?
Those are two different colors of brick.
Okay.
So that's a tan brick and a red brick.
And is that your intent?
Yes, sir. That's accurate. And it's 100% brick and aluminum awnings. Otherwise,
Sign on the building as well as a monument sign? Or is that not depicting how the building's going to look?
Are you asking if they can have a freestanding sign?
Can they do both?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, that's enough. That's allowed for to have both, because that sign on the building looks very large.
It-
So I'm just
You're
curious.
permitted wall signage up to 10% of the facade or 100 square feet. And then freestanding signage is permitted up to 30 feet in height and up to 150 square feet of sign face area. That's just in the zone that's proposed, but I believe it was just mentioned that they would be willing to limit
30
the
feet
height.
flat.
I'm not sure if there's a proposal for the square footage of freestanding signage, but I did hear a mention of 17 feet. Right.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Propose any kind of LED or lighting of the signs?
LED,
Sorry?
LED signs. LED,
You are going to have an LED sign
yes.
on the building or the monument sign?
It's a monument signs and the size about the BP sign, they are not very bright LED, but it's just standard LED what they provide us. Yeah.
Anything else from the commissioners? I'll open it up to the audience. Do we have any questions from, yes, sir? Mhm. Your name and address, please.
Brian Shirley, 1136 South Park Drive, Bowling Green,
Swear-
Kentucky.
You swear to tell the truth.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Shirley.
I'm here not in any kind of opposition to this, but the adjacent property owner knew that I was going to be at this meeting tonight. They asked me to come and talk to you about the rear of this building. The adjacent property owner is concerned that the utilities, and basically the back of the house, is going to be facing their property. And if there could be any kind of a fencing that could be proposed to screen any kind of utilities that are to the back of the building along that property line with them. Now, this is a unique property. You got road frontage on three sides. There's going to have to be a back somewhere.
Dumpster enclosures are required, but if there's any sort of utilities like HVAC equipment, there's not a requirement that that be screened. And it depends on the zone or the use. There's not a screening between incompatible uses. I think
Didn't we talk about that last time, about the utility or the HVAC being on top of the building, there being some kind of screening?
yes, roof-mounted equipment is addressed.
Okay.
I believe that's development plan
Remember us
condition.
talking about that
Let's
and
see.
the applicant agreeing to screen that? Screen it from all four, I think we should ask for all four sides.
That's development plan condition number 5, and that's for roof level equipment. But there, I guess if it's ground level equipment, there's not a commitment to screening anything that's ground level. But that development plan condition comes from the recommendation for roof mounted equipment
Okay.
in the Scottsville Road corridor study.
There's not a commitment that all utilities would be roof mounted, that they could be ground mounted as well.
Correct. There's not a requirement that the equipment be roof mounted. It's just that if it is, that they've committed to screening it on the roof.
Mr. Shirley, could you take the pointer and point to the adjacent property owner that has the concern?
Property owner's down in this area. The property owner is Houchins Industries. And they, at this time, do not have plans on developing this property, but they do have concern that this is basically the back of a commercial site. And if they ever did develop this, or if they sold it to somebody else to develop, that you're going to be staring at the back of a building.
So could we also go to the elevations that have been submitted and see if we can identify the elevation that is facing this property?
There is no drawing of that one. This is the Scottsville Road side. This faces Matlock, or Mount Lemon, okay.
So we've got three sides of it. So it is the side that isn't depicted that you have a
Correct.
concern about? Okay.
I think a question we should ask the applicant, are they planning on all utilities being on top of the roof?
Yes, yes, sir.
The heat and air condensers would be on top of the roof. The only thing on the back wall would be perhaps a CO2 tank they would have to refill every couple weeks, and perhaps an electric meter. But the rear elevation would be finished the same as the others, and instead of a parapet on just 3 walls and seeing that equipment, we would have a parapet on all 4 walls.
So the only outside utility would be the CO2 storage tank.
And maybe electric meter or gas meter, wherever those may end up, probably the rear. But,
So it is your intent to have HVAC?
he's saying the electric room would be, so all the gas equipment would be inside of a room in the back.
Inside the room.
So it'd be behind the door.
Things-
Wouldn't be
Same outside.
exposed.
That's
Is
correct.
that what you're?
Right, so the rear would be finished the same as the sides and front, and the parapet wall would continue on the rear to hide all the equipment.
All the
Okay.
HVAC.
And can we include that language in the binding elements that the parapet wall continues on all sides? So that, I think that addresses the concern, Mr. Shirley?
Building materials.
Right, yeah, we
Yes,
can-
yeah.
Yeah, we can commit to
I
that too.
think Mr. Moore is
Yeah,
working on it.
screening.
The building materials we're referring to is the same building materials as shown in the other 3 elevations depicted here.
We can call it brick masonry if you want to. Yeah, just to,
Binding element, development plan condition number 4 will read, all facades shall be constructed with at least 100% brick, stone, masonry, or cementitious material. And we're going to delete
not
architectural
concrete
metal,
block masonry, yeah. And there may be a door with a small window, if that may not matter.
That wouldn't be an exterior material, though. That's going to be that would be addressed under a fenestration of some sort.
So, Mr. Tell, do you agree to Development Plan Condition Number 5 will read, electrical transformers, heat and air conditioning equipment, and similar facilities shall be roof-mounted and screened from public view. A parapet wall shall be extended on all sides of the structure.
Yes, sir.
If I may make one correction, I'm not sure he'll have any control of the electric transformer. That's going to be sitting, they won't allow him to put the transformer on top of the building, correct? Yeah. So,
Transformer has to be on the pole.
yeah, so, and if it's an underground, they're going to make him put that out there. So if we could just remove the electric transformer.
There's not going to be any kind of outdoor storage whatsoever, no out storage building, no out, because some of
There
these
won't be-
markets have a lot of outdoor things. You're not going to have anything
no,
outdoor.
There won't be any outdoor storage,
Okay.
anything, yes.
Mr. Patel, another one, do I understand it's your agreement to limit the height of your signage to 17 feet?
Well, here I needed 30 feet. For 17 feet, that was just an example which I have in my other station in Portland. So that's what we have given, the idea, that the sign looks like this. It has a watch fire, like a reader board underneath, and a sign on top. So, yeah, 30 feet.
That's
To 30 is permitted by ordinance, yes.
So a 30-foot sign complies?
Sorry?
Do I understand correctly, a 30-foot sign complies?
It complies with the proposed zone. The recommendation from the corridor study on page 4, number 5, it doesn't mention size, but it does have a recommendation that all new signage be monument style with a lower square footage cap, as well as a prohibition on LED signage. So typically, monument style signs would not be 30 feet in height. Typically, they're
The
shorter.
recommendation is to be a monument style.
Correct. That's the recommendation.
And
Of
not-
course,
and
it's not a hard
and not-
standard, but-
And not an LED sign.
Correct.
Or
So
would you
are
consider
willing-
doing?
Are you willing, is that something you're willing to do, a monument-style sign with no LED? Okay.
No reader board? Okay. So just the minimum sign with the just price sign on top, no LED, okay,
Monument-style sign.
yeah. So there won't be a pole sign, 30 feet?
Now,
Okay.
so when it says monument style sign, it does not specify a height, is that correct?
Correct. But I guess that might be worth clarifying right now.
Yeah,
If they're,
Well,
but typically, monument style signs are not 30 feet tall.
Right, but it doesn't specify, if BP says we want this, a 12 or 15 or 17-foot high sign, we're not committing to a size right now because we don't know what they'll say.
How tall the sign is, but minimum signs are normally just this high, it's not that big, yeah.
So,
How about we say less than 10 feet?
What is the maximum height you feel safe making a commitment to?
The sign?
yeah, how tall would you want it to be?
Yeah, up to like 17, 18 feet minimum.
Minimum?
Yeah, that's the tallest what we BP require.
Okay, you said tallest, so that would be the maximum, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are we suggesting that the sign would be a maximum of 17 feet? Or are you suggesting the sign?
Minimum 17 to 18 feet.
For monument style sign?
No,
That's
just
awfully
pole
tall.
sign, pole sign. BP don't
They're not doing poles.
like minimum sign.
See, we do
Yeah,
the same thing,
yeah,
but
yes.
but if you put a solid base on that, that's a monument
Yeah,
sign.
I know, this is the bottom
it's
one,
17
yeah.
feet.
Yeah, this is 17 feet,
So if we put a
yes.
brick base on that, no poles,
No pole, yeah,
that's a monument sign,
yeah,
17 feet.
okay.
Are you okay with 17 feet?
Yeah,
monument
that's
style?
okay, yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Basically just no.
That's
you all are good with.
No, but I'm
You're the
asking-
decision
but I'm
makers.
asking- But I'm asking you,
Corridor.
yeah, I'm asking you, do you think that fits
Well, it would look nice.
in?
How tall are our ceiling here?
Probably 15 feet. Yeah, it's about
17 feet's awfully tall for a monument sign, is it not? I mean, that'd be as tall as this room.
It
Very
would,
tall when you're 100 yards away doing 55
Yeah.
miles an hour.
I'm sorry?
It's not very tall when you're 100 yards away doing 55 miles an hour. I mean, in comparison to standing here, it is tall. But
yeah, I think the concern here is trying to meet the recommendations of the corridor, but at the same time, the type of business you're trying to attract does seem to have a need for a somewhat larger than a typical monument sign where it's a destination, you already know where it's at. I can't imagine, though, that BP hasn't encountered building in an area where they can't have the more traditional sign. So, do we?
I guess I'm okay with the 17 monument style.
Yeah, I think we've gone from 30 to 17.
Yeah, I mean. Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, when you have a fueling facility, you have fuel prices, and obviously you need to display the price of fuel for your sign to be effective. So I think your comments are fair by saying that, you know, a larger or taller sign may be appropriate for this type of business. I guess the recommendation on LED signs, I don't know if, I mean, that's been discussed, but it may be worth discussing fuel prices and whether or not, yeah.
Is it gonna be fuel tanks and stuff? I haven't heard that, and there's no, that doesn't show.
It's right on the drawing.
4 of them right there.
There's 4 gas.
4 fueling
4
stations.
fueling stations right there in the drawing.
I saw that, but I didn't see any kind of a cover or anything for the fueling tanks. Are they gonna be out open, or is it gonna have lighting?
we're illustrating a covered canopy there.
Covered.
Arc around the tank.
Bring in elevations?
That's strictly branding.
Yeah, branded side.
From corporate.
Question and maybe a suggestion to maybe help with the sign, if you're leaning towards maybe allowing, being a little more lenient than the strict reading. So 17 foot tall, we've got our height. It also requests that a lower square footage. So 150 square feet is the maximum size. So I don't know how wide, you talk about how tall, but how wide the sign is. So you might be able to commit to a smaller square footage than 150 square foot. So that's one
I'm sorry.
suggestion.
Oh, sure.
Give me this second area. And then the second part is what we've seen happen before in other locations. Not this one, is limiting the amount of the sign that can be LED. Maybe it's just gas prices only. Maybe it's just a smaller menu board or something like that, rather than having the whole entire.
Try to do the smaller,
Like this.
that's the standard sign.
It seems that the intent there with the LED is do something that doesn't change often or randomly, and to have a more stationary depiction from the exterior. I'm not sure how we could word that, but let's get the applicant's input here and see what their thoughts are.
Example of that would be the gas station on the corner of Cemetery Road and Lover's Lane, and that was limited to just the gas prices only.
It's a great idea. So could we revisit the LED sign? Would you be willing to limit the LED portion of this sign to displaying gas prices only?
Say no watch, then no reader board, yeah. Yeah, that would be the only gas price.
That's the only thing that would be illuminated in LED would be the gas price, correct?
Gas price, yeah.
Okay. Hamp, if you'll do some wordsmithing for me there.
And if we could return to the square footage of the sign, the ordinance permits 150 square feet. And so the corridor plan suggests that there be lower square footage for the sign. So is the applicant willing to limit the square footage below 150 square feet?
Our current sign he used last is 120 square feet, and we'd be no larger than that. So a 20% reduction.
So this is 100
How is that 120?
That's if we were maxed out on the 17 feet, we're roughly 7 feet wide. And that's if we went the full 17 feet. Removing the reader board may very well reduce that height.
So we'd have, I'd suggest a new binding element number 8, which would say freestanding signage shall be monument style with a height no greater than 17 feet. A square footage no greater than 120 square feet, with LED used only for gas prices.
Yes.
Is that agreeable?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It won't be a sign. That would be LED. It
Is
won't
there
be
LED behind that, inside?
There's just light. It's not like
Inside
bright.
of it?
Inside of it, yeah.
So what does that mean for the illumination of the logo portion of the sign? Is it backlit or is it?
That's permissible, yes.
It just couldn't be LED. The-
Okay. It could be backlit. Right, okay, that's what.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha, okay, good.
That address everyone's concerns, the commissioners?
I just have one question about the greenways. Did you all decide to connect to greenways or make any kind of sidewalks or anything? Or just your landscaping around it? Because we've
Now
not
just-
seen any landscaping
Now
plans
just
either.
the landscaping, there's not a parcel within, I think we're 6 parcels down before there's a structure, or several parcels away from the structure.
Just to clarify, even though there's no landscaping shown on this plan, if we get to a building permit, that would be required at that time, and we would review it for compliance with our landscape ordinance.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Rachel.
Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? Do we have any opposition to this request? No opposition? Anything else, commissioners, before I call for a motion? No questions? No comments? Then I would ask for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed
Wait,
zoning
just-
map amendment
wait.
together with.
Craig, wait
Yeah.
just a second. I think probably now's a good time for us to make real clear who may vote on this. And
At the minutes,
so these people were present at the October 3rd meeting. Sandy Clark, Christian Volkert, Tim Graham, Greg Gay, Dean Warren, Eric Madison, Tim Houston, Velma Runner. So those people may vote, make motions and vote tonight. That is a quorum. And it'll, of course, take, I think, 5, there's 9 of those, so 5 votes to take action. Excuse me.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon a general development plan docket number 2019-42 Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and actions items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Thank you. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
No.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert, Commissioner Houston,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Madison,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Gay,
Ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passed.
The motion carried with opposition. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you. Our next item for public hearing, docket number 2019-43Z County. Michael and Sarah Cowles have filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 5.105 acres located at 394 Cleveland Drive from agriculture to residential estate with a general development plan. And we'll have the staff report from Ms. Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair Runner. We had a pre-application conference for this property you see here on April 9th. The property, as Chair Runner has already said, is zoned agriculture. Its current use is agriculture. Around there you have mostly agriculture and single-family uses. Future land use map is low-density residential. And I will go ahead and bring that up, and I'll reference this a little more later. But the applicants tonight are requesting to subdivide the property into a maximum of 2 single-family residential lots, both being RE residential estate. The proposed land use would then be single-family. On the first page of your staff report, I'll note that the proposed density after that would be 0.4 dwelling units per acre. Below that, you have the compatibility with the comprehensive plan. Property is designated as low-density residential on the flume, and the proposed RE zone is a potentially compatible zoning designation in that category and may be appropriate if you all determine that the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area. I do want to note below that in the compatibility with the surrounding development section that a site characteristic review indicates that there are adequate facilities available to support the proposed development, with limitations noted regarding road width and water availability. There's also a mature tree line along the northern property line and a few other mature trees located in the northeast corner and southwest portions of the property. I'm going to go on to page 2 of your staff report. Under the site characteristics review, I'll go ahead and note here that we have the setbacks mentioned there, as we always do. And then you'll notice there that it says, unless otherwise noted in Development Plan Condition 5, which you see here on the exhibit. You've got a shaded portion there. The applicant has requested that be a non-buildable area, and so no new home would go in that area. And then you also have there at the front the setback on the proposed new lot from the roadway there. And if you have further questions about that, I'm happy to answer them, and the applicants are also here. They'd probably be happy to address that as well. Below that, wastewater or water adequacy. Property does not have adequate water flow to meet the minimum fire protection requirements, but is exempt because only 2 total lots are proposed. Already mentioned the natural features. This property contains a soil type that is classified as prime farmland. We'll also note that that Cleveland Drive is a 16-foot wide road, which that was one of the notations we made about road width. Below that, in the site design and compatibility review section, the surrounding density, the average for properties located on Cleveland Drive is 0.28 dwelling units per acre. The surrounding architectural features, there's a mixture of 1- and 2-story single-family homes in the area, and also a mixture of housing types, including manufactured homes. The building materials review, the homes in the surrounding area are comprised of a mixture of brick, vinyl, stone, other modern materials. The applicants do address building materials. I'll go over that in just a second. And the existing home on the property is brick with, I believe, some vinyl as well. Building orientation, the existing home faces Cleveland Drive, and staff suggests that any new home also face Cleveland Drive. With that, I'll go on to page 3 with the development plan conditions. I'll read through those real quickly. Number 1, no mobile or manufactured homes. Number 2, any new resident shall be at least 1,500 square feet of heated, cooled living space Number 3, any new residence shall be developed with only a brick foundation and no exposed block. Number 4, any new residence shall have a detached or an attached 2-car garage. Number 5, any new home constructed on proposed Lot 2 shall adhere to the 190-foot front setback and be located outside the restricted building area as depicted on the preliminary development plan. Number 6, any new building lot created shall obtain a site evaluation from the Barren River District Health Department for septic system approval prior to recordation of a plat. And number 7, any new access point shall be coordinated with and approved by the Warren County Public Works Department. So after that, we have the Focus 2030 category review. Staff evaluated 16 items. This application complied with 5, did not comply with 3, and the others are left up to your determination. Of course, you have LU 113 about compatibility. LU 2, this body should determine if the proposal is a high-quality development that includes design standards tailored to preserve the character of the area. The proposal does not comply with LU 214, PR 17, or NCR 116, which deal with vegetation on the property. Planning Commission should determine compliance with NCR 241. That just goes back to the road width, since this is less than the 18-foot minimum standard for county roads, and the property is served by less than 250 gallons per minute of water. And so this body should determine whether or not the proposed lots will result in an increased amount of development pressure on the countryside. The proposal may comply with LU 252, HN1, and HN13, which deals with if this is a compatible infill project that preserves or enhances the character of the area. And the proposal may comply with HN21 and HN4, which deals with if this development is suitable for the proposed housing type and if the proposed residence is/are believed to enhance the array of housing options available in the area. I'll go back to page 1 where you have your points to consider. Again, the proposed development is generally consistent with the flume and low-density residential category. The proposed development complies with a majority of the site characteristics review criteria, with limitations noted regarding road width and fire protection. The proposed general development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and meets the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance, and compatibility of the proposed development should be determined by this body. So that is all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicants are here, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer your questions as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you have any questions for Mr. Ramsey before we hear from the applicant?
Mr. Ramsey, does the 1,500 square foot, you said there are actually some manufactured homes in the area. Does the 1,500 square foot, is that pretty close to what we would see in that area?
As far as square footage of other homes in the area, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if Rachel had looked up any of that or not, or has any of it written down. We did look it up, but don't have any of it written down. So I'm not sure of the average home size in the area.
Just from the aerials, they don't look to be huge homes.
Yeah, there are some other manufactured homes in the area, so it does vary. I know there are also homes like the one that's existing on this property now that is it's a stick-built home, so I think it varies.
You said exteriors, there's vinyl, there's brick, there's a pretty good array.
Yeah, in the area, there is a mixture of materials for the most part.
One last question regarding the setback. So if I understand correctly, there's going to just be a large front setback on lot number 2, correct?
Right, for the new proposed new lot, there would be a front setback of 190 feet there. I'll get my cursor over here. So this area right here, where that line is, that would be the front setback. And so a house could go anywhere in this area, but could not go in the shaded area and could not go 190 feet.
Okay, so I didn't misunderstood on the stand on the shaded area. It can't go in the shaded area, but it could go anywhere behind the setback on that lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Would it be a shared driveway or 2 different driveways?
That I don't know. They do have a development plan condition that says if there is a new access point, that it'd be coordinated with Warren County Public Works. The applicant may be able to address that. I'm not sure if they have gotten that far yet or not.
Other questions for Mr. Ramsey? None. Thank you, ma'am. And we can hear from the applicant. If you'd state your name and address, please.
Michael Cowles, 394 Cleveland Drive.
You swear to tell the
Yes, I
truth?
do.
Thank you. I believe there were a couple of questions. Was there?
Driveway, it'd be a separate driveway.
Yes, it'd be a separate driveway, preferably asphalt, but I don't think a condition was put in there saying that.
Have you already gotten approval by the road department?
We have not.
You have not? Have you
Not that I
talked
know.
to them about a
No.
separate driveway?
No, we have not.
No, have not.
To be honest, I just never assumed who, because every house on that road has its own separate driveway.
Other questions for? Open it up to the audience. Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? Do we have any opposition to this request? No questions, no opposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Then I'll ask for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon the general development plan docket number 2019-43Z County. Based upon testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the following, with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further request this motion includes a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witness in public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale? Commissioner Madison?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Balance? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. The motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you. The next item, docket number 2019-44Z. The next item, docket number 2019-44ZBG, Trident Properties of Bowling Green LLC, care of Mitch Wright and Dean Warren, have filed an application to rezone tracts of land containing approximately .54 acre located at 0 Chestnut Street, bounded by East Main Avenue and Spring Alley from central business and office and professional residential to general business with a general development plan. We'll hear the staff report from Ms. Hurt.
Thank you, Chair Runner. And before I get started with the staff report, I'll just point out that you have an email at your seat this evening from an adjacent property owner. That's there for your review. That owner was not able to attend the hearing and asked that we forward along this email for your consideration. And with that, I'll jump onto the staff report. We had a pre-application conference on September 27th for the properties you see outlined in yellow located on Chestnut Street. The current zoning of the property is a mix of central business and office professional residential. The current use of the property is commercial, and the proposed use of the property is to develop a mixture of multifamily residential uses with the potential for some overnight accommodation uses such as a short-term rental as well. The future land use designation for the property is mixed-use residential. This category applies to mixed-use areas where taken as a whole. The primary land use is residential in a variety of housing types and densities, balanced by complementary retail, office, institutional, and civic uses. The distribution of land among these various activities shall be implemented through specific zoning, with standards addressing the form and character of development to ensure compatibility. This designation applies to the historic core of downtown Bowling Green and urbanized areas being redeveloped with the primary use as residential where complementary commercial and services are provided in a contiguous area. Here, development standards should be tailored to emphasize an urban character and a mix and intensity of development appropriate to this unique center of activity. Moving on to the site characteristics review, I will turn our attention to the preliminary development plan, which shows the proposed layout of the site. You can see there's a building proposed here along Chestnut Street with parking to the rear. There's also some green space planned. It's hard to see in the black and white version, but there's some green space planned around the building with a patio area back in this location here. Under transportation infrastructure, staff has noted that the properties have frontage on Chestnut Street and also on the alley here that runs alongside the property. That's Spring Alley. So they have an access proposed along Chestnut and then another access proposed on the alley. Moving on to site design and compatibility review. Staff has noted that there is a mixture of low and moderate density residential uses in the area. I'll jump back to the land use map so you can see those here. There are a few higher density residential uses also mixed in the area, and development plan condition number 6 limits the maximum density for the proposed development to 10 units, which would result in a density of 18.52 dwelling units per acre. Under surrounding architectural features, the majority of the structures in the immediate area are historic 2-story structures. There are also a few newer 1-story structures mixed into the area. The applicants did not specify the height of the proposed structure. Under building materials review, the structures located on the adjacent properties are mainly constructed of 100% brick. The multifamily building that fronts East Main Avenue utilizes vinyl for the exterior material. Other structures along Chestnut Street are a mixture of brick, wood, and vinyl. And the applicants committed in development plan condition number 3 that the exterior of the principal building on the property shall be constructed of no less than 80% brick, ephes, stone masonry, or cementitious material on all sides. Exposed plain face block is not permitted. Exposed split face block, if used, is limited to the foundation only. Materials on accessory buildings shall complement those of the main building. Under building orientation, staff has noted that the majority of the existing structures on Chestnut are oriented to face Chestnut, and in development plan condition number 4, the applicant has committed that all buildings located on Chestnut Street shall be designed in such a way to appear to have a front facade facing the street, regardless of the location of the most used entrance, driveway, access, and parking. Under signage, the zoning ordinance allows freestanding signage in the proposed general business zone up to a maximum of 30 feet in height with a maximum sign face area of 150 square feet. The existing signage along Chestnut Street is much shorter in height and contains less square footage. The majority of the existing signage in the area is also either non-illuminated or externally illuminated. The applicants committed in development plan condition 7 that freestanding signage on the property shall be limited to a maximum of 20 feet in height with a total sign face area of 75 square feet on each sign face, and did not address lighting for future signage on the property. Under proposed open space, the maximum allowable lot coverage in general business is 80%, meaning at least 20% of the property would be maintained as open space. The applicants further committed in development plan condition 8 that at least 2,000 square feet of usable open space will be provided on the property to include patios, sidewalks, and green space areas. Moving on to the development plan conditions, I've already gone over some of these, but I'll touch on the ones that weren't mentioned. So the first, number 1, the retail uses of veterinarian or commercial kennel or animal sales, vehicle service, or vehicle repair shall be prohibited. Number 2, development will be served by one access point on Chestnut Street and an access to Spring Alley. All access to the property shall be coordinated and approved by the Bowling Green Public Works Department. I already touched on 3 and 4, so I'm going to skip to number 5. Any new building constructed on the property shall utilize the variable front yard setback rule to complement the existing pattern of development and to be set back a similar distance along Chestnut Street. On page 4, looking at number 6, if the property is developed as a mixed-use building with first floor commercial and office with residential uses on upper floors, the residential development shall be limited to a maximum of 10 residential units. As a side note, I'll mention that in general business, if you develop only multifamily uses and that's the only use within the structure, based on the lot size, the maximum number of units would be 8. I already touched on 7 and 8, so I'll move to number 9, which states that the developer will conserve existing trees on the property when feasible based on location, type, and condition. Moving on to the Focus 2030 category review, staff evaluated 17 items. 9 of these items were in compliance, and there were 8 items that staff feels the Planning Commission should consider for compliance, and I will touch on those now. The first one, LU 113, which looks at compatibility. Next, LU2 and LU2.1, which look at quality of development and character of the area. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is a high-quality development that includes design standards tailored to preserve or enhance the character of the area. Next, LU252, HN1, and HN1.3, which look at infill development and suitability and impact on nearby neighborhoods. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is a compatible infill project, if it is suitable for the area, and if it will maintain or improve the existing character and pattern of development within the area, and if it will strengthen nearby neighborhoods. And last, we have HN 2.1 and HN 4, which look at the proposed housing type and housing options. The Planning Commission should determine if the location of the planned development is suitable for the proposed housing type, and if the proposed development is believed to enhance the array of housing options available in the area. With that, I think I'll go back to page 1 and wrap up with the points to consider. Staff has noted that the proposal is consistent with the future land use map and the mixed-use residential category. The proposed development complies with a majority of the site characteristics review criteria, and the proposed general development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and meets the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance, and compatibility of the proposed development should be determined by the Planning Commission. That is all for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know the applicants are also here.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Hurt before we hear from the applicant?
Talking about offices on the first floor and then residential, is that just a proposal, or are they proposing that?
That may be a better question for the applicants. I think they're leaving the option open if they wanted to do only multifamily, that they could do that, or potentially if they had a user in mind that needed office or commercial space on the first floor with residential uses on the upper floor. I think they're kind of leaving both options open, but they may be able to answer that a little bit better.
If they just use mixed residential, they can only get 8 units instead of 10, is that correct?
No, the way the development plan conditions worded, it's saying that if there are mixed uses within the building, that the maximum would be 10. The zoning ordinance, just the way it's written, based on the lot area, if it's only multifamily, it would be limited to 8, just by the zoning ordinance.
That's what my question.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
But if the zoning does pass and they decide to just go ahead, they can go ahead and build 10 multi-units.
If they have non-residential uses on the first floor.
Okay. Businesses on the first floor, they can build the 10, but if they don't put the business on the first floor, they can only build 8.
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we'll hear from the applicant. Your name and address, please,
That's right, 41 Talbot Drive, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
and you swear to tell the truth.
I do.
Do you have anything that you wanted to add or any other?
I think honestly, she covered everything that we agreed to.
Mitch, how many stories are we looking at here?
4 with a basement, including the basement. So a basement and 3 above that.
Put a base.
Well, the elevation of the lot
Allow.
fades toward Chestnut, so you probably won't even notice that from the Chestnut Street view. Really 3.
Do you really expect to put commercial down and build the?
Not really, to be honest with you. I'd like to leave that open, but I think it'll be 8 residential units, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Last question, is it fair to say there'll be an Airbnb type unit?
We'd like to leave that option open, yes.
There's one other item that that a neighbor has expressed a concern about is the sign. What is your intent for the sign?
To be honest, I'm not even sure I've considered that fully yet. I mean, we'll comply with whatever rules and regulations there are. To be honest with you, the easiest way to kind of explain this project is, if you know where 1133 Chestnut St. James project is, I own that as well. The building is going to be a mirror of that. And so a small sign of some type out front,
That's a
potentially.
monument-style sign, right?
Say again?
That's a monument-style sign.
Yes.
Would you be willing to make a commitment to a monument-style sign for this property?
I don't see any reason why I wouldn't do that. Sure. absolutely.
It's, the only other thing is, so you've got 80% brick, EFS stone. I mean, what could you see the other 20% being?
Hardy siding. Yeah, no vinyl. Very minimal vinyl, if maybe just, yes, something like that.
So that would essentially be 100%.
It really would.
Yeah, if we, because we typically include hardy as a cementitious material.
Development plan condition number 7, we've agreed that the signage would be limited to a monument-style sign. Is there going to be a limitation on the height of that monument-style sign?
What do you have at the other project approximately? What's the height of that sign?
I'm not sure that we even need a sign, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I'm pretty open to that. I want it to match the downtown area and be historic in nature. We might even be able to get away with putting something ingrained into the building.
Could we say something conservative, like a maximum of a 7-8 foot sign?
I would agree 8 foot. Yeah, it's fine with me. Sure. Yes. Yes. That's our goal. To be perfectly honest, if we can make the design fit, I want it to look exactly like St. James and just be St. James 1 and St. James 2. That project's been really good for us, and people tend to like it. So, thank you. Thank you. I can't make it 100 years old, but
I know
if I could, I would. That's right. We'll try.
Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? No questions? Do we have any opposition? No questions, no opposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
I'll ask for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon a general development plan docket number 2019-44ZBG. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in the public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with objectives and actions items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, request this motion include a summary and evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We need a second. Thank you.
Commissioner Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Balance? Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. Motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you much. Our last item tonight, docket number 2019-45ZBG. Ben Hansborough and Stan Dar have filed an application to rezone tracts of land containing approximately 3 acres located at 0 and 721 Plano Road from agriculture to highway business and RM4, which is multifamily residential, with a general development plan. Have the staff report from Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. First, I'll just wish Miss Hurt a happy birthday, and happy she chose to spend it with us. So,
21.
Yeah, she just turned 21. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah.
wonderful.
Sorry, had to do that. I will note for this application, you do have some updates at your seat, some revised development plan conditions, and a new exhibit that reflected some requested changes that were asked for previously, and so I will try to note those changes as we go through the staff report. To start with, we had a pre-application date on this property on August 21st, 2019. As Chair Runner said, the request is to split zone this property, both highway business and RM4 multifamily residential, to develop the property for up to 32 multifamily residential units and a mixture of commercial units. The aerial you see on the screen outlines the property. There, it's along Plano Road and surrounded by the Magnolia Hills development, which we'll see as we move here to the existing zoning. Zooms out a little bit. Currently, the existing zoning is agriculture, and agriculture is the original zoning of this property. is surrounded by a variety of zones. Some of the most recent rezoning included some RM4 pieces, a PUD, which is a single-family neighborhood, and then we also have some other multifamily and agricultural properties around that, which is identified also by this existing land use map here. Looking at the future land use map, we see that the property is designated as mixed-use commercial, and the proposed highway business and RM4 districts are listed as potentially compatible zones in this mixed-use commercial flume designation. Here before us we have the rezoning exhibit, which depicts the zoning split, which is roughly here, so that Plano Road is here at the, I guess, the bottom of the drawing. But if you look, so that first 2/3 of the property roughly is highway business, and then here's the proposed split zone line, with that back portion being the proposed RM4 zone. And then also supplied was the preliminary development plan that depicts the proposed layout of the property. I'm going to jump ahead to page 2 and look at the future land use map analysis, starting at the top there. The mixed-use commercial land use designation, it's a long paragraph. I will not read all of it, but I'll read some of the applicable sections. These areas are envisioned as predominantly large-scale employment and business centers, albeit supplemented by compatible light industrial, retail, services, hotels, and where appropriate, higher density residential development. Areas of supporting uses such as retail, restaurants, and residential also included, but the primary focus of this category is commercial mixed uses with complementary residential comprising of up to 50% of the contiguous area. So we keep that in mind, of course, as we continue on through the analysis. Looking at the site characteristics review, those are only two I'll touch on. Natural features, there were several trees located on the property and a portion of a sinkhole that existed along the northern property line. And then concerning prime farmland, these properties do contain soil types that are designated as prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance. I'll be happy to go over any of the rest of that if you wish, but for now I'll move on to the site design and compatibility review. So the surrounding densities in the area range from 0.84 to 15.66 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density for just the RM4 portion of the development is 31.37 dwelling units per acre. Looking at that, again, it's just that back third portion of the proposed rezone line, and that is the proposed area there. We'll go over this. If you have any questions about that, I can get into that more. But mixed use is harder to evaluate, especially on a split zone, because we're talking about the development as a whole. So, but the evaluation was just based on that back third, so it's essentially 2 16-plexes, I believe, is what's proposed there. So that's what increases the density. But if we look at that as a whole, it's 10.67 dwelling units per acre for the entire 3 acres. So while
but you really can't look at it that way, can you?
Well, here's the distinction in my mind, but make sure I explain it well for you all. So the amount of people residing there so the density is only 10.67 dwelling units per acre. However, given the additional commercial proposal for the rest of that mixed-use development, it's much more intense use of the land. So while the density is less, the intensity is greater. So that's just the way to think that, way to think of that, or at least that's the way I think of it. Surrounding architectural features, they're a mixture of 1- and 2-story structures in the vicinity, with some 3 stories proposed, which lends itself to our building materials review. Most of the homes in the area are constructed a mixture of brick, vinyl, cement, board siding, and other modern masonry materials. And then also for reference, we pulled the binding elements for Magnolia Hills, and we'll go over the specific development plan conditions. Sorry, I'm still using the old term myself. But the development plan conditions and what the applicants have proposed with the changes, and I'll go over those in a minute, are almost identical to the Magnolia Hills RM4 development as well. So I want to make sure I note that. Moving on to the area-specific policy review. I'm not going to touch on too many of those because most of those are in compliance. I will go over a couple of changes. First one I'll just mention is PL8 on page 4, and these are the Plano corridor study specific ones, is that future and development should incorporate high quality design materials. Plain face blocks should be prohibited for all facades, and split face blocks should be permitted only for building foundations for single family uses. They have committed that with the changes, and we will get to that in a second. In development plan, I've got it listed here below, but in development plan condition, I think it's still 6, but it may be changed. I will go over those specifically in a minute. Again, we got these changes this morning. But the Planning Commission will have to determine compliance with this policy, and that's the 50% for the RM4 section of the development. You'll just have to determine whether if 50% is enough of a compliance with this policy, but that's where I was mentioning earlier that mirrors what the Magnolia Hills was approved for, so it does mirror that. PL13, parking areas for non-residential multifamily residential development should not be located within the building setback along Plano Road and should be located to the side of and rear of the buildings when possible. So development plan condition number 3 states that for the highway business portion of the development, it does prohibit parking within 50 feet of the Plano Road right-of-way. The concept plan reflects this development plan condition, but it also depicts several parking spaces in front of the proposed buildings located closest to Plano Road. And again, that's this bottom of the page, if you will, bottom of the drawing, this being Plano Road. So there is parking in front of the buildings. So the proposal just complies with a portion of this policy, and the Planning Commission will have to determine how that fits in with the development. PL14, I'm not going to read all that to you, and of course we had a little bit lengthy description there. I just quickly say that they now comply with this access, and will one of the changes on the drawing, the previous one that was in the packet had the access point through the development and up near the top portion. That has now been changed and put down here at the bottom of the development, and so that is now compliant. So they have made provisions for that adjacent property. Again, with the memorandum of understanding that was signed with the Planning Commission, City, and the County Public Works, as well as the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, when we did the Plano Road study, limited access on Plano Road for access management. And so these properties, there's 2 parcels here and one just to the left of the screen there. That one to the left will now have access through this property. So that has been resolved as of this morning. So looking at the policies in compliance of the Plano Focal Point Plan and the policies not in compliance, so a slight change there. So policies in compliance, kind of remove the asterisk on 14 now, and we remove 14 for not in compliance because we feel like those are in compliance now. So you have the majority of those in compliance and only 2 not in compliance now, and that's PL8, PL13, or at least up for your determination. The general development plan conditions, I'll go ahead and go through those now, and I think everything will hopefully be a little more clear as I go through these. what the changes are. I'm going to start with, again, this will be one of the handouts. I'm going to start with the highway business portion. Number 1, no building shall exceed 2 stories in height. And again, that would be these front, 5 buildings here. So no building shall exceed 2 stories in height. All new utilities shall be underground. Number 3, no building nor parking shall be constructed within 50 feet of the existing Plano Road right-of-way. Number 4, there shall be 1 access point on the Plano Road, which shall align with Boddicker Way and shall be reviewed and approved by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. Number 5, all buildings shall be constructed utilizing modern construction materials and architectural finishes. No visible block shall be utilized, nor shall there be vinyl, metal, or wood siding. Number 6, all structures fronting Plano Road shall be oriented to face Plano Road. Number 7, no sign shall exceed 8 feet in height or 75 square feet in sign face, and all signs shall be monument style. Number 8 are prohibited uses. Those are your typical prohibited uses we see. I don't think I'll go through those unless you have a question on those. Number 9 was a new one offered, that hours of operation of any commercial business shall be limited from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. 10, any sinkholes on the property shall either be properly mitigated and or engineered for use as part of any groundwater retention plan. Number 11, the developer will make best efforts to preserve all mature and healthy trees not existing with any building envelope or within any area of vehicular movement or parking. And then number 12 is one of the ones that was changed to address our points to consider, and the access should the parcel of land adjoining the development, 741 Plano Road, be converted into a use different than its current use, which is single-family residential, the developer shall provide the owner thereof an easement for ingress-egress as shown on the concept plan attached here to as Exhibit B. So that is that access easement that we pointed out earlier. So that is the highway business portion. Now for that rear third of the property, which is RM4. Number 1, no building shall exceed 3 stories in height. Number 2, all new utilities shall be underground. Number 3, the development will not exceed 32 multifamily residential units. No building shall exceed 16 units. Number 4, the exteriors of all structures will be constructed with a minimum of 50% brick, stone, drive-it, cement siding, man-made stone, hardy board, or other modern masonry materials. No wood siding shall be utilized. Any metal siding will feature concealed fasteners. No split face or plain face blocks shall be visible. So that is a new addition, is that last 2 sentences there to address some of the concerns that we had in the staff report. Just to summarize, those 2 proposed buildings could be 50% vinyl, but again, that mirrors what the Magnolia Hills development was, or proposed for the multifamily section. Number 5 is the same sinkhole consideration as previous. 6 is trees, maintaining the trees as proposed. And then number 7, I do not think applies anymore. I'll have to get Mr. Davenport to verify this. But this rear portion is no longer proposed to have that access point, so I do believe that number 7 could be removed from consideration on these development plan conditions. But that will be something Mr. Davenport has to confirm. Moving on to page 7 of the staff report. So jumping back to the staff report, the Focus 2030 category review, staff evaluated 23 goals, objectives, and action items. There were 10 in compliance, 1 not in compliance, and 12 of those were up to the Planning Commission to determine. So the 1 not in compliance would be LU 211. The applicants have not committed to an increased open space within the multifamily portion of the development. Then concerning LU 231 and TR 2.1, regarding the access, it now complies with the changes that they proposed, so that is now in compliance. And then concerning LU 2.8, that has been revised in the staff report now to say the proposal complies with 9 of the policies from the Plano Focal Point Plan. Compliance with 2 of the policies should be determined by the Planning Commission. So we went up 1 there with the changes that were submitted to you at your seat. So with that, I'll move back to the points to consider on the first page. The proposal is consistent with the future land use map in the mixed-use commercial category. The proposed development complies with the majority of the site review characteristics. The general development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and does meet the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. And the Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area. So you can strike the, at the time of the authoring of the staff report, since we got that submitted, we have addressed the building materials with the 50% question on the RM4 portion. The proposed development complies with the majority of the recommendation of the Plano Focal Point Plan. And then the last bullet point, number 5 there, you can strike that, as the applicant has now addressed those access concerns that we previously had. It has been addressed with those updates. So a little confusing, but quite a few moving parts here, but I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure Mr. Davenport will be happy to speak as well. Yes, ma'am. So the lighting was asked to be removed by staff because that's already a requirement in the zoning ordinance now. That was one of the changes we made about a year or so ago, and so it's just a requirement now, so it's not needed as a development plan condition.
We go back and address those. We've addressed policy number 14. We moved that one. Leaves us 8 and 13. 8 seems to indicate the absence of a description on the metal exterior and exposed fasteners. Did we fully address that?
So yes, and that's where we have to go to the handouts here. Mm-hmm. So if I'm looking at the RM4 piece, item number 4 on the new set here. The exteriors are 50% brick, stone, dry-vit cement siding, man-made stone, hardy board, or other modern masonry materials. No wood siding will be used. Any metal siding will feature concealed fasteners, and no split face or plain face blocks shall be visible. So all those are prohibited, but it does leave open that it could be 50% vinyl on those structures versus the 5 buildings that are in the highway business. Let's see, that is number 5 on that sheet, that the buildings utilize modern construction materials and architectural finishes, no visible block, no vinyl, metal, or wood siding. So it's 100% prohibited on those 5 buildings closest to Plano Road.
Okay, and help me understand number 8. I didn't follow that one. I'm sorry, number 13. I didn't follow that one, I don't think. It has to do with the parking and the setback?
Yes, so along Plano Road, in general, when the corridor study was done, it was recognized that those structures sat further back from the road than in many other areas of the county, and so it had that 50-foot setback. The other idea is if Plano Road ever has to be widened in the future, that was the reason for that in the plan. So they meet that setback. So there's no parking or buildings in that setback. They did commit to that. The other part of that is then no parking in the front of the building if possible. And so they do have, as you see here, this parking in the front. So that's where we say it complies with a portion of that. But it's up to you all to decide whether that's enough or not. admittedly, of course, as you see on this concept plan, the balance of the parking is, for all, the whole development is well behind those front buildings. So that's the difference.
And I don't see where it says in here on the 32 units, are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom?
I'm not sure of that. The applicant may be able to address that.
Yes, ma'am.
Which zoning map? Any of them? Okay.
See how it's split? We're doing the split different now. See how there's
Yeah, so
two
that,
lots
yes, yeah. Mhm.
side by side. Now we're gonna do them front and back?
So there will be, so this one's probably a better depiction here. So you can see this Mr. Dar and Mr. Hansborough, as the applicant, has proposed to buy all of Mr. Dar's property that is currently in 2 lots. They will combine those lots when they do this development, if approved. The zoning is what will be split. There'll still just be one property. It'll just be split zoned. Just like if you see this parcel here, this was the whole Magnolia Hills development. So this is just the split zoning. So they're obviously smaller scale because it's smaller property, but that's the difference. So there won't be 2 parcels. It'll just be split zoning.
And then the split zone would be front to back instead of like, that looked like 2 lots side by side.
Correct.
So now we're gonna look at front to back. Everything's gonna face Plano Road.
Correct, as depicted here. So yes, and they've committed to orient those towards Plano Road. So again, these are, Mr. Davenport may want to explain this better than I can, but it gets less commercial as you go back.
And Ben, remind me next door on the multifamily next door to this parcel, the building orientation, what's the percentage that we have on those buildings?
So the development plan conditions were pretty much mirrored from that, materials and everything. But while we don't have final plans in yet on this, I think we've just got the original proposal in. All of the buildings across the front will be oriented towards Plano Road. There'll be some behind that will not be, but the requirement was that the closest ones to Plano Road will be facing Plano Road.
What's the percentage? I'm more talking about the multifamily in the back, with the 50% they're proposing.
Yes.
Multifamily next door, is it 50 or is it higher?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it's 50%. They're almost identical development plan conditions with the building materials, with that everything you see in that darker red color there.
The difference
When I
being the
drove in
one.
there, it sure looked like more than 50%.
None of these are built yet.
They're unbuilt yet.
No,
Yeah.
but the ones that were, or did I go in the wrong subdivision?
No. So the subdivision, the single-family houses are over here,
Right.
and I don't remember those percentages. I have it. It'll take me a second to look them up, but I don't remember what that split was. This is the multifamily side. This is the side that's still all dirt, and they have not built any of those yet. I do know, yes, I did look that side up. I just didn't look the single-family side up.
With the exception that they excluded vinyl siding in their conditions.
Exclude this proposal or the Magnolia Hills?
The one next door.
This one here, this side here allows 50% vinyl.
Does allow 50%
Yeah, it
vinyl.
mirrors exactly what they're asking for the RM4 piece. And I'll have to look up the single family.
Anything else from Mr. Peterson? Thank you, sir. And we'll hear from the applicant.
Evening, Chris Davenport. Let me go ahead and do one thing. And by the way, I'm here on behalf of Ben Hansborough and his partner, Dr. Rishi Agarwal. I'm sure I mispronounced that, Doc. I'm sorry. I do it every time I talk to you. And then Mr. Stan Dar, who owns the property. So happy to be here. The DPCs for the multifamily, the RM4, were taken straight from Magnolia Hills. At the suggestion of staff, I use those identically. Now, Ben tells me there is no intent to use vinyl in the RM4. So there's really no reason for me to do anything but agree that that's going to be 100%, the same DPC as the commercial. It's going to be 100% stone, brick, hardy board, those cement materials. He doesn't intend to do it, so we started with that because that's what's next door, but he's farther down the road than that. He knows what he's going to put in, so we can mirror those DPCs. That really leaves the 50-foot setback issue as I see it. I guess I'd like to discuss with you. And Ben is right, the transportation cabinet does not want us to have parking or buildings within that setback. So if they come and widen the road, they don't have to condemn a building or condemn parking. So we agreed to that. That is reflected in the appropriate DPC under the highway business DPCs. Brian Shirley's here from ACES. He could discuss this in more detail. But the reason we had to put a minority of the parking in front is there's some space saved, and it's almost like playing Tetris. It's hard for me to explain it, but if we try to put all the parking in the back, we would lose, because of the way the vehicles would move, we're going to lose space, a lot of space. So that's why there is admittedly some parking. I would suggest to you that focal point says, if possible, parking should be in the rear. And in this case, given the 50-foot setback that we're honoring, I would submit to you it doesn't make it possible on this small infill parcel.
So the trade-off for you was commit to the setback or have parking in the front?
And I'll tell you, I'm not going out on a limb that greatly is preferable to the transportation cabinet.
Chris, the units in the back, what's the makeup on the units?
We don't know that, Commissioner Volker. I'll tell you what will drive, the two things will drive that. We've got depicted 50 parking spaces on this concept. Okay, we know that's 50 bedrooms, right, under the ordinance. So there's going to have to be give and take. I'll tell you, I don't think the market, I don't want to speak too much from a market standpoint for my client, but 32 single bedroom units, probably not the mix you're looking for from a business perspective, okay? But they're going to have to weigh the mix with the parking they've got, and can't get around that. So when they go to pull permits, one thing that the staff's going to look at before permits are granted is what's your parking, what's your bedrooms. The 16 per building comes from Magnolia Hills also, same DPC. And so in our concept plan, we're showing two buildings. We think that that's the most we can really hope for. When we get in there and engineer it, I've told my clients that's probably the ceiling. We'll have to see if we can meet that or not.
The only thing that jumps out at me that I would like to see is I would like to see some kind of fence in the back, just because of the back of those units will be looking out to residential houses. And I don't know if that's something you guys would consider doing.
Just a minute.
Okay.
I might.
So thank you. If that develops as depicted, and that is multifamily with that single family behind it, they will have to do an incompatible use buffer as a zoning ordinance minimum. Doesn't require a fence, but it's either evergreen and deciduous trees, but you can do a fence and substitute, so just like.
I know Commissioner Volkert likes a fence.
So if we dress it here.
Chris should know I like a fence.
Yeah. We are agreeable to a 6-foot fence along where am I looking? This would be the northwest, right? Along the northwest property line.
We're going to delete, let me back up. Looking at the RM4 development plan.
You can delete 7.
And in its place, we'll put in a requirement to construct a fence
of at least 6 feet in height along the northwest property line. Wooden. No chain link.
So my question is too, how are you going to separate your commercial? You have 5 commercial buildings, and then you're going to have this residential. So the residential is going to look at the back of the commercial buildings? Or are you going to put landscaping there? I mean, how are you going to make this look like it ought to be residential behind commercial?
Well, there will be, the landscaping ordinance requires it to be landscaped.
Between the two?
On all these properties, we'll have to have some landscaping, Commissioner Clark. And the intent here is, I think Ben kind of mentioned, is the uses flow from one to the next. The most intense being the commercial in the front, the mix in the middle, and which we envision being office professional, that type of use, and then the multifamily in the back.
But I'm asking how to put.
I'm sure the developer will want to make that as how should I say this, as aesthetically pleasing as possible, because it's going to make it very difficult to rent those units in the back
if you're looking at the back of a building.
Yeah.
Who wants to walk out their door and see that? So that's why I was asking
and
about
bear in
the
mind, those
place.
buildings are 100% brick or cement. Those are the materials that will have to be used in them.
Did we address that exterior?
I think he was getting to it.
Okay.
So now we're in the RM4 and development plan condition 4, and we're going, it will read, the exterior of all structures shall be constructed with 100% brick, stone, dry-vit cement siding, man-made stone, hardy board, or other modern masonry material.
Correct. And and then just like in the HB, we can say no vinyl, wood, or metal siding will be utilized. Those should mirror those up. And then number 7 will be the fence DPC, right? Number 7.
You could delete the sentence, any metal siding will feature concealed fasteners, since metal is now prohibited.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? Do we have any opposition to this request? No questions, no opposition? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I ask for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon a general development plan docket number 2019-45ZBG. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objective action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We need a second. Thank you.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Balance, Commissioner Vitale, Commissioner Volkert, Commissioner Gay,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Rich,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Houston,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Madison,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am. The motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you. Any new business, sir?
Just a couple quick things. Just the office update, or new office, I guess, is progressing very well. Expect to have construction stuff done within a couple weeks. The setup will begin shortly after that. So looking probably in the middle of December to have everything in place. Move sometime after that. We'll, of course, let you know when we're getting closer to the time and know, but certainly by the first of the year, it looks like we're going to make that date. So that's going really well. Still on time and actually on budget, if not a little under. So we're happy about that. Then the other quick thing is typically end of the year. in December, we have our kind of end of the year time where we get together and we do our training. Had a great suggestion by Miss Mooney. Why try to stuff that in with all the rest of our busy schedules in December? Why don't we just wait till January and then we can do it in the new building? So maybe late January, late February, we'll look to move that to that time if that's okay with you all, and probably be easier just to January or February might be easier on everybody's schedule. So that's all I have.
Sounds good. Anything, commissioners? Nothing else? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.